Hello class, and welcome to today's flipped classroom. Our video for today is a Chapter 1 review. As you can see, we've got a lot of different standards that are covered in this review, so make sure you write all of them down. We do not have any vocabulary today, so we're going to go straight into problem number 1. And problem number 1, as always, we use order of operations, or PEMDAS. So please solve the problem 5, parentheses 6 minus 4, close parentheses c to the third power, minus 40. Go ahead, solve the problem. Start the video when you're ready to see the answer. Okay, let's go ahead and go through the steps. First, you're going to do the 6 minus 4 inside the parentheses. Next, we have exponents. Then we see multiplication. And finally, subtraction. Okay, hopefully you did all right. Next problem, go ahead and solve this problem. Notice it's actually two problems. First, it wants you to order the numbers as is. Then, it would like you to order them by their absolute value. And I'm going to go over this because that one might be a little tricky. Start the video when you're ready to see the answers. Okay, first one, you're sorting it in order from least to greatest. As we know, all negatives are smaller than all positives. And negative 10 is the furthest from 0, so that's going to be the very, very smallest number. And then up to positive 4, which is the largest. Okay, now ordering them by absolute value. First I want to find what their absolute value would be. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 9, 10. Now notice it wants us to order the original numbers by their absolute value. So now we need to come back in and plug in those negative signs and say, this is the order it would be if we were using their absolute value. Okay, what are opposites? Please define that. Start the video when you want to see the answer. Two numbers that are the same distance from 0 but on opposite sides of 0. For example, 5 and negative 5. Problem number 4. Please solve. Remember, when you're adding negatives, you've got a couple rules. In this case, you want to think about what you're secretly doing. Okay, let's take a look. You are secretly subtracting. So you go ahead and do that subtraction. Then you want to look at the absolute values. Negative 79 has the greater absolute value, so my answer is negative. Go ahead and solve this one next. Again, start the video when you're ready to see the answer. Okay, we're going to start by adding. Then, notice that both of them have a negative sign, so my answer must be negative 65. Because remember, when you're working with addition and you've got two negatives, they don't cancel out. The answer actually gets more negative. Problem number 6. Careful on this one. Let's take a look at the answer. First, we need to skip change. We end up with a simple addition problem, so just add. Okay, next problem here. Go ahead and solve. Skip change. We end up with this. Writing a positive and negative so we know we're secretly subtracting. We end up here. Now we look at the absolute values. Negative has a greater absolute value, so my answer again is negative. Number 8, now we're doing multiplication, so you want to think about your sock rules. Let's take a look. First, we need to multiply. Now, our socks do not match, so our answer is negative. Again, go ahead and solve, but notice what you have to do first. Okay, so hopefully you plugged in the numbers first, then you multiply. Notice I chose to multiply these two first, which canceled out the negatives. Okay, but again, you can multiply in any order. If you did these two, the negative would stay, and then your product times this one would cancel out the negative. So no matter what you do, that negative does cancel out. Okay, now we're looking at division, still thinking about your socks. You simply divide. My socks don't match. And I have my answer. Okay, again, another division problem. Start by dividing. My socks do match. So again, I have my answer. Notice it's positive because we have those matching socks. So if this was an addition problem, my answer would have stayed negative. But because it's division, or it would also work with multiplication, they cancel out and become positive. Okay, multiple choice. 0 over -9. Okay, hopefully you chose 0. Remember in our example, this is like having an egg on top of a house. A bird can lay an egg on a house in a little nest. It'll live happily ever after. Now try this one. Hopefully you caught the error here. We cannot put a house on top of an egg. It'll smush the egg and we will have scrambled eggs. So that is undefined. Okay, watch out for that. Undefined, remember, is not the same as 0. Okay, go ahead and fill in the blank with these properties. Try to do this without looking them up. See what you can do as best you can to define these properties. Make sure you pause it, write them all down, and then check your answers. So let's go ahead and see with identity property with addition. Identity property, remember, you're always trying to keep your identity, trying to stay the same. So with addition, you are adding with 0, so it stays the same. With multiplication, you're multiplying by 1, so it stays the same. Inverse property of addition, you're adding with the opposite, so it cancels out. Multiplication property of 0, obviously it's got that 0 in there, you're working with 0. And then the closure property is kind of the catch-all. If you're not sure what property it is, it's not one of the above ones, then it's just saying, if you're multiplying with adding with an integer or multiplying with an integer, your answer is going to end up being integers. Okay, as long as everything else is an integer, it's going to stay an integer. Okay, now go ahead and try these 3 properties. Okay, let's go ahead and see how you did. Commutative property, remember you're commuting to school. Order doesn't matter. Associative property, you're changing your groupies or your grouping symbols, and they can move and it won't change your answer. Okay. And lastly, distributive property, the number outside the parentheses is shared with all the number inside the parentheses. Remember, everyone gets love from the 5. Okay, let's try out that distributive property. Use the distributive property to write an equivalent equation. Okay, now notice it doesn't say to solve, it just asks you to write an equivalent equation. So there's 2 ways you can do this. Go ahead and try it out and I'll show you your answers. Okay, both of these are equivalent equations. This one, you simply distributed the 5 to both. Here, after distributing the 5, you also multiplied. Both of those are equivalent equations. They are not solved. Obviously, you can't solve them anymore because we don't know what x is, so I can't possibly subtract. Okay, good work. Hopefully you did pretty well in that review. You may want to go through this a couple times, refresh your memory, because these are very similar questions to what you'll see on the test. When you finish, go ahead and go on to the quiz. Okay, for those of you without internet, here is a copy of the quiz. Remember, those of you with internet, the quiz is in different order. The questions are in different orders, so watch out for that. Okay, have a good day.